Hey everyone, I'm here with my friend Rick Furr.
Hello.
He is a famous blacksmith, a real live dwarf, and he's got a fantastic beard. I wanted to introduce you all to him. Do you have an Instagram, by the way?
I do, but there's nothing on it. I have an Instagram just to lock up my name.
Okay, well, I'll tag you in it anyways.
All right.
And I'll add you as a collaborator. If you wanted to add that to it, then it would be up there or not. But it's up to you.
The only thing on there.
But,
I'm kind of proud of not having anything on it, quite honestly. So.
Well, this man knows a ton. We want to tell him about your beard, how long you've had it, what got you to grow your beard, and then tell people a little about forging and there's a lot of people I know that.
I got out of the Army in 93 or 94, something like that. It was a little bit after Desert Storm, and I decided not to shave anymore. So not at all. Like I got the whole neck beard thing going on, and it's changed lengths over time. Oftentimes trimmed by the fire, because anything below the face mask, the shield gets caught, which is a horrible smell. I don't recommend that as a trimming method, but I do recommend atomized 30 weight non-detergent oil. That's good. Anything that comes off the power hammer is just fine for your hair. It's fine. But no hair care products, nothing. I use the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. And
next time I come, I'll try to maybe bring you some stuff.
Yeah? If it's flammable, I won't use it. The waxes and stuff. I know some blacksmiths that can get by with it, but I've never...
Most of the stuff you put in and you rub into your skin, not actually your beard.
Sure.
If it's a good oil, it usually like soaks in within like 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. And it just helps with just keeping things healthy.
Sure. Well, when you're growing it out, it's itchy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people can't get past that.
And beard oil is one of the things that actually helps people.
All right. Well, there you go. Then it's got to use.
But yeah, anyways, this is his literal like workshop from heaven if you're into anything forging. Like I said, he's famous. The first time I learned about Rick is actually on the Nova series that you did.
Right. That was in 2012, I think.
Yeah. Something. It was a long time ago.
It feels like it, yeah.
But tell people a little bit about forging. Maybe like what was it like actually working for a Nova series? That's something I never thought
well,
about.
the Nova contracts out their productions, right? So they find people that can document a story and do it. And that was Pangloss Films, a guy named Peter Yost, and he was great. I had such a good time that when the Art Institute of Chicago approached me to help make a suit of armor, I contacted Peter again, and I said, "Do you think there's a show here?" And he said, "We don't know." So he went back to the powers that be at Nova, because they were both in New York at the time, and he said, "Would you be interested in this kind of show?" And they said, "Well, who's doing it?" And they said, "The guy that did the sword." "The beard?" They go, "Yeah, the beard. Is there going to be a beard and fire?" He goes, "Yeah, probably." They go, "Yeah, write it up. We'll see if we want to do it." And they did, and nobody saw it. Right. The sword show got like 4.5 million views the first air date, and like 3 million the second air date, which is like a day later. And the Secrets of the Shining Knight got 2.5 million people on the first viewing, and it didn't do well.
Well, I've never seen that, so I'm gonna have
to
look that up.
That's why it's all your fault.
Dang it. No, that sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Well, it's a wonderful project, and you can see it at the Art Institute of Chicago. They have it there on display. So the idea was to start with dirt and refine that through the bloomery process and make plate, as if we were doing it for a knight that needed it.
Was that the plate that we were just talking about?
Yes.
Earlier?
Awesome. I made 2 plates that were 3/8 of an inch thick and like 19.5 by 24 inches.
From dirt.
From dirt, and it tapered. Now, what was in the show was our first attempt at it. And then I kept working on that for another 7.5 months. So we got better, right? Never got what I would call good.
What the guys at the time.
Right, yeah. But the reinforced, the thickened plate that I made, they shot a bullet at. And you'll have to watch the video to see what happened there. But you can see the armor. It was the plates that were made here and by a guy named Mike Pikula in Friendship, Wisconsin.
I actually know him.
Yeah,
That's
he's on sabbatical now.
Yeah.
Traveling. So he's not currently making things, but he made the vast majority of the bloom. I made a little bit here, and then he really stepped up and did the larger bloom masses. Yeah, like pieces that were 40 pounds. It was fantastic.
Amazing.
And then he made what became the breastplate on display, and I made the reinforcing plate that is the outer placard, and then the back plate and all the other pieces that became the helmet and the pauldrons.
Did you do all
and
the
everything
shaping, or
else.
did another armor do the
No,
shaping?
that's a specialty trade. The guy
Yeah.
that did that was Jeff Wasson over in Long Island, and he is, if not the second best armor maker out there. And he took the plates that were roughly formed in thickness, right? Thicker in some areas, thinner in others. And he did all the shaping and polishing and heat treatment, which is also in the video. Quenching a breastplate when you have a sample body of 1 to go off of is a pretty ballsy thing.
Nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Right, and then they got mercury gilded in Europe by a specialist. I tried. I worked at a lab in Chicago trying to do the mercury gilding, and I would have needed months and months, if not longer, to get good at it. So there was no time to get good at it. And I can't do it here because it's illegal. But in the lab, we could fume off the mercury, and it's fine. So yeah, they sent it to Europe to a specialist in Germany, I think, and he did that, and it's pretty cool thing. The amount of labor that went into it to make a suit of armor from dirt was.
Did the end suit, is that in the Chicago? Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to either visit there or I'm gonna have to find it.
Oh, it's not, and it was a copy of one that they have in their holdings. So not only is this is a recreation of the one there, and it by happenstance fits the curator, Dr. Jonathan Tavares. Yeah,
That's cool.
He's a dashing man. He looks good in it, and he's the one that brought the museum pieces for the Arms and Armor collection from storage up onto display. So they headhunted him from the Met, and now he works in Chicago there, and doing an excellent job with research and community outreach and everything there. So if you get to Chicago, go to the Art Institute, and also call the Field Museum and ask them to do a weapons display, because they have fantastic collections of swords and daggers, and wonderful tsuba collection, Japanese sword guards.
That's the round part at the base of the sword.
That's it, yeah. Protects your hand, but it's also a showpiece for art. They've got wonderful pieces that aren't on display because, lack of room, lack of interest, what have you. And I've held some of them, and it's a world-class grouping, but it's all in storage. Yeah, so it'd be nice if there was a desire from the public to see it so they can bring some of that stuff out. Yeah. Because it's every bit as good as the best stuff I've seen. Yeah, good work is good work.
Well, that's a fantastic story. You want to show people a little bit about your shop? Because I know there's some people are probably familiar with some of these things.
Some of it, and there are videos out there of the shop, but it changes.
It's very different here.
Yeah, we've got bits and pieces. This is a Nazel air hammer. So it's got a motor and a little internal compressor, so it makes its own air. This part, the moving bit, weighs 235 pounds. And this is a size 3, a 3B Nazel. They're not very common. This one was made in Philadelphia around 1921. And I got it from a guy that got it from the Ford Motor Company. So they were going to destroy it. They had 2 of these. And he got to it before they unbolted this one. They had already destroyed the first one.
That's sad. And I'm sure this probably went to scrap.
I think they utilized it in-house for weight, just for weight.
Interesting.
Yeah, they didn't scrap it out. They
had some other big purpose for it.
They turned it into something else. And this one had like pairs of dies, but they didn't make it. Yeah, they got scrapped. So I'm happy to have this. I have 2 giant friction screw presses. That one's a 150 ton and that's a 100 ton. They're going to get running this year, which is good because I need them running rather than just sitting there holding the concrete down. Got a small rolling mill in the back and a few others that I'm going to get running. Quite a bit of the back here is sadly storage. I've got two 50 kilowatt induction units that are probably going to be for sale here next year. Couple kilns, little mill, salt pot for heat treatment. This is my main forge. It's done a tremendous amount of work. It's just a simple old style firebox, piece of cylinder with some insulation, and I run a very simple burner into it. So it's just a fuel line, an electric line, and then what I call a Swiss valve, because this was made by a Swiss blacksmith when he came to visit. I used to just have a piece of cardboard on there, and he said, that's not good. So he took a day and made this twice. And I tell people that because he was very embarrassed that it took him 2 attempts and so long to make that. So that's a Swiss valve on there. This runs natural gas because I have it. If you have an option of natural gas, run it versus propane because it's a lot less expensive. So it comes in off of the main line, and I run 5 pounds of pressure. Okay. So normal gas pressure for a house,
isn't it like 2?
It's a half a psi. So not even 1 psi. And I've got 5 in here. I had special permission to do it. So that allows me to run it directly off with just some shutoff valves. Always have a way to turn off the gas. So yeah, it's 5 psi running right into the forge, and I get welding temperature just fine. I've welded 44-pound billets of pattern weld in this forge. And I'm old, so I can't lift 44 pounds of pattern weld anymore, but this forge will happily heat it. It takes about 1.5 cups of coffee to get that hot. Little hydraulic press. It was made by Chuck Schaefer, who is no longer with us. I've owned 3 of Chuck's presses, and I wish I had them all back, but I sold 2 of them and kept this one. It's about 20 effective ton. It's a 5-inch cylinder off a 3-horse motor. The dies slip in and out. So I've got a myriad of dies on the floor and everywhere else, so I can do most of the shapes I commonly do. And I like the dies that are contained rather than using handheld tooling under there. It's a lot safer. People get a little lax when they're using the hydraulics. It is a dangerous thing, but you don't know how dangerous until
it's too late.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, same with the rolling mill. That's a scary tool. You should not treat that. I mean, you saw it.
Yep, this is gonna be, I'm gonna try to turn this into a fillet knife, which I've never ground something that thin, but we put this through the rolling mill when it was maybe about like yay long, and then it brought out this length. It looked like a whole S, and figured out. But...
Well, the rolling mill gives you a consistent thickness. It doesn't mean it's flat. Yeah, flat's something different. And then I've got other hydraulic units and hydraulic systems that I'm getting up and running, but these are bigger. These are 100 and some ton units that I'm putting into play. And I'm going to have eventually like five 100-ton presses and then a couple 75 tons.
Do you have a specific project in mind for when you get
not so much a project, but I'll have them all in a row at the same height. So I'll be able to come over with the gantry and feed from one operation to the other, all with foot pedals, coming off of the same power pack. Yeah. So the trick is to move oil in a safe way. Yeah, and then manipulate the billet in a safe way. But swapping out dies quickly is possible, but it's a pain. So if you have multiple presses all set up with dedicated dies, especially when you talk 100 tons, you're not hand holding a punch under that thing. Yeah, it might be the last thing you do. It'll look cool until it's not cool anymore. Yeah. But yeah, that's the hydraulic end of it. Simple drill press there. And then a really weird machine. This is called a Pomax Nibbler. It's a P9. It's the largest one they make. Or made. They don't make them anymore. It looks like a giant sewing machine, but it's used mostly for sheet metal. You can shape stuff in there. My sword quench tank, and then the junkyard, that is the other half of the shop. Small layout table with a vise. I've got 2 grinders that we're running now. These run a 2 by 132 inch belt, right? So it is not a normal length. Let's get one off of here.
For reference, mine is only a 2x72, which is like...
So it runs about that big. It's like a megalodon mouth right there. So these are made by Stephen Bader and Company in New York, and they call them space savers out of irony, I think, because they're huge. They're good machines. I made this little adaptive plate so I can slide tooling in and out and use all the standard 1.5" tooling that came with it. So I fabricate these, and it turns the space saver into a very versatile grinder. But I don't necessarily recommend you buy those. Get the 2x72 tabletop ones and be done with it. Something that grabs some of the larger particles of dust and shakes it out. You can see that I could use a larger amount of cubic foot of air movement to catch some of these other things. The reason that the floor is pink and purple is that's the last 2 colored woods I ground. So we had a class in here and students chose those colors for their handles. I do about 2 classes a month. So people come in, we do pattern welded knives from start to finish. So in 2 days we do a stack. You'll weld that together, draw it out, cut that into multiple pieces, restack, weld it, draw it out, rough forge or bandsaw the blade blank from that, grind it, heat treat it, that's day 1. Grind it, polish it up, etch it, assemble a handle, put that on, grind that, and then sharpen. That's day 2. It's a lot of work, but people seem to enjoy it. 2 very long days. More belts, can never have enough belts. And then storage for other things. I've got another induction unit there, US made, some wide belt sanders, a little surface grinder over there. I'm going to extend the shop next year. We're going to double the square footage with a lean-to going out on the north side. But, Blanchard grinder in the back. Just, most blacksmithing is just taking a lump of metal and redistributing the mass, right? So you're just treating it like a hot piece of clay, right? Mm-hmm. But bladesmithing is doing that, and usually involves a lot of forge welding if you're doing Damascus steel. More appropriately called pattern weld, but that's a Rick rant for another time. But you change that shape, so you're doing blacksmithing work, but then you're heat treating it. And most architectural smiths don't do any heat treating unless they're making a chisel or a top tool or something, a hammer. But in blade making or tool making, that's a very important part.
Yeah, you don't have a tool if you don't have a hardened
surface. No, if you're not
surface.
Heat treating it. No, then you're making some dark age imaginary thing, which I guess is fine.
If you're in the dark ages.
If you're in the dark
or
ages.
pretending to be in the dark ages.
Right. There's a reason to do historical recreations, to make things from dirt and try to replicate the technique and get the same outcome. And that's fine. But if you're making something out of modern steel, you should do a modern heat treatment to that modern steel. I don't like using scrap. I don't like found materials. Because you might think it's free, but it's not free because you don't know how to heat treat it. You don't know the chemistry. So you have an experimental product. And that's not a good thing if you're selling it. You should be able to do repeatable success, not one-offs and you think it's okay. Thinking something's okay is irrelevant.
Wastes a lot of time and money.
It does, yeah. Free
learning
sometimes
not very
costs
much.
Free steel ends up costing you more than if you purchased a known chemistry. So it doesn't matter what the chemistry is. You can make a knife out of pure iron by adding carbon to the edge and then heat treating it in a way that it responds. You can make a blade from cast iron by decarburizing it and heat treating it in a way that it responds. Both were done historically, right? So the ability to manipulate carbon percentage is right in the wheelhouse of early blacksmiths. Because they were intimately involved with their raw material. But if you're using modern steel and you're making a shitty product, that's entirely on you. Because the metal's doing its job. And you can silk purse a lot of things. Literally using pure metallurgical iron, you can make a knife out of that. by adding just a little bit of carbon to that cutting edge, case hardening or
I've made blister steel
blister
before.
steel is a good example. Yeah.
I have a fire striker made out of something made for that.
Yeah, and it works. I mean, it's functional. You look at any book on Sheffield, and they're going to talk about blister steel, and then shear steel. That's blister steel's big brother, right? And there are iterations of that, and they made millions of pieces of cutlery out of that in Sheffield alone, let alone, what was happening in France and Germany. And Japanese stuff, you could consider some of that. The orishigane, they do that. That's a way of altering the carbon level of a raw material. So if you're doing bloomery material, smelting from dirt, refining that, you can play with carbon percentages that are outside the bounds of modern steels, because modern steels have other alloys, so you don't need that high of a carbon. You can compensate with other alloys to increase toughness. And, there are, probably 24 or more common alloy steels that bladesmiths use these days.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was whatever your region was known for or what you could trade for. So there's a lot to learn about the old work, but the physics and chemistry haven't changed. What changed is the cultural relevancy of those techniques.
And access.
Yeah, I mean, you can access as far as getting the raw material to play with, or you got to want it.
And knowledge.
Yeah, well, knowledge comes with mistakes. If you make all the mistakes possible, then the stuff that's left over is how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't like failure, this is the wrong hobby.
No.
It is the wrong hobby.
I've turned a lot of bigger things into smaller things.
Yeah.
So I don't waste my project completely.
There are a bunch of stories about swords becoming patch knives, So you take a sword blade of 28 inches and it becomes half a dozen little.
Yep. And actually, this is probably one of those stories, because this started out as a cut off or a broken piece of a failed student project.
It was extra.
Extra left over. Yeah.
Yep. Just right off the end. So he reforged that. It looked like a elongated triangle.
Yep, that's what it started. It looked like a corn chip.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
It did.
And then it looked like a corn chip. Now it looks kind of like the outline of a knife.
Well, I mean, that's on a good belt sander with a sharp belt. That's 5 minutes of grinding before you're ready for heat treatment.
Yep.
So, yeah. I hate grinding. So I got fast at it. That's how you get over the hump of grinding. Get better at it. It's like Howard Clark in Iowa. He's a curmudgeon, but he's a talented curmudgeon. I was telling him years ago that I was working on straightening the sword blade for 4 hours, because I'd knock it a little bit in line here and I'd let it cool and it would warp. And then I'd knock it in line over there and I'd let it cool and it'd warp. And I worked on it off and on for days. And I finally got it to work. Blade was fine. It's out there in the world somewhere cutting, I hope. And I told him, it took me 4 hours to straighten that one. And he said, well, get better. That's the answer. Well, I'm not good at this. Do it more. I break more stuff. But be aware of where you're falling down. If you are oblivious to your mistakes, but you want to get better, you're screwed.
Yeah,
you have to realize where you're making the mistake.
That's one of the things I love about crafting in general, because it forces the realities of the nature of what you're working with in your hand, in your mind, and how much you're paying attention to what you're doing or not. And
then eventually you do it enough and you get into that flow state where...
Yeah, I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Yeah. Well, sure, there's that. Yeah, but you will. If you do things all the time, then you learn how to adapt to it. But if you get really good at something and then don't do it for a decade and you revisit it, you're going to make all the same mistakes you made.
Yeah, and you'll be like, oh, yeah.
Right.
I should remember that.
Yeah, after you do it, you're like, oh, yeah, A, B, then C. That's how that worked. Yeah. But just do it more. You want to get good at something, do it. And then be aware of where it's not working to your satisfaction, right? But it's all physics and chemistry.
Yeah.
If the physics and chemistry are on your side, then you get a success, right? But if the chemistry's not there, it's not going to work. If you're not treating it within the realm of reality, it's not going to work. Hope is not a plan.
Nope.
Yeah. but it's, you know, it's okay to be hopeful. But what do they say? You can pray, but row for shore. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you if you're going to get into blade making in particular, blacksmithing. I mean, metalwork is a big pie, right? And bladesmithing is a tiny little sliver of a tiny slice of that pie. What will make you a better knife maker is getting good at the grinder, because every knife needs to get ground. Not every knife needs to be forged, right? What makes you a better blade smith is becoming a blacksmith first. Because if you can do tapers and scrolls and upsets and pierces and twists, then applying those skills to blade making is simple. I mean, the carbon steel or stainless, whatever you choose to work in, has certain requirements beyond mild steel or wrought iron. But once you learn how that material wants to be treated, you can apply those same blacksmithing skills. But if you want to be a good knife maker, be a good grinder, because you got to grind everything, right? And if you hate grinding, get good at it, because then you'll hate it a little bit less. Or at least the duration you hate it gets smaller because you're faster at grinding, you know? And what else? Swords are not just big knives. They're a completely different animal. Everyone's grandfather was a blacksmith. Let's see, what else? Whatever you're doing in public for a demonstration, you're doing it wrong, and the public will let you know that. When I worked near a rodeo down in Davie, Florida, with a friend, when I was living down there, whatever we were making was a horseshoe, because that's what blacksmiths make, are horseshoes, regardless of what it looked like. Never correct the general public if you're demonstrating in public, because this just leads to an argument, and you're the idiot, not them. What else? Don't heat treat during the daylight hours, especially if you're working outside, because you can't judge color. Don't use found steels for making tools. Tongs are fine, but I wouldn't make a knife out of anything I picked up on the side of the road. I don't know. What else?
I don't know. It sounds like some pretty good words of wisdom on top of a shop tour.
Rick rants.
Hopefully people learn.
Well, they won't. No, you got to fail a few times before you learn.
Yeah. Hey, well, if anybody wants to reach out to you, like you were talking a little bit about the classes that you're doing,
right,
and they might be interested in, where would they go to look you up for that?
For this year, 2025's
Well,
booked.
maybe someone wants to book 2026.
Maybe they do.
All
I
your
haven't
time.
posted those classes yet, but yeah. The company name is Door County Forgeworks, but you can look up, Wisconsin Blacksmith. There aren't many of those out there. In fact, I think I own the
domain for that.
Yeah, I think I do, but there's nothing up there. Or look up Rick Furrer. Last name is Furrer, and I'll pop up. Or do an image search for that. And yeah, the beard changes. It's a lot more gray than it used to be, which I hope happens to you. Get some gray. It's a good way to end it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Come to Wisconsin. It's not just a flyover state.
Yeah.
Hey, well, thank you everybody for joining and watching this. I think this has been quite the tour, and a little bit more. So I'll probably end up posting this on YouTube, but for making like a shorter clip for Instagram,
Sure.
because you have shorter
Yeah,
videos.
chop it up. We should have filmed you making the knife.
Maybe we can do that next year, or maybe sooner than next year. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. If you watched to the end, thank you. And for those that are I'm going to cut this part. Come watch the rest on YouTube. Anyways, take care, people.